So the engagement pattern works because of recognition, but before we get into that.
Wait. Recognition. That's like knowing a good prompt from a bad prompt?
No. That's still prompt thinking.
But the prompt is how you.
The prompt is the input. Recognition is about evaluating the output.
Oh. So it's the other end.
Let's start there.
The AI collaboration method.
Episode 2 Recognition Judgment, the Human Layer.
Everyone assumes the skill for working with AI is technical.
Understanding the model. Knowing how it works under the hood.
Or mastering the prompt. The perfect phrasing. The magic words.
The assumption is, technical knowledge equals capability.
It's wrong.
Not completely wrong. But wrong about what matters most.
So the engineers don't have an advantage?
We have an advantage at building the systems. Not necessarily at using them well.
The skill that matters isn't about the system. It's about you.
Your ability to evaluate what comes back. To know if it captures what you meant.
That's not technical knowledge. That's judgment.
So what is this skill actually called?
Recognition judgment. And you might already have it. Let's define it precisely. Recognition judgment.
It's the ability to evaluate AI output against your actual intent.
Not whether it sounds good. Not whether it's grammatically correct. Whether it captures what you actually meant.
So it's quality control.
Closer. But quality control implies a checklist. Criteria you can write down.
This is more like taste.
Taste? For AI output?
Exactly. Here's the core question. The only one that matters.
Output appears fluent, confident, well-structured.
One question, does this land? Does it capture what I actually meant?
Two possibilities. It either captures your intent, or it just sounds right.
And here's the trap. Sounding right is the default.
AI is trained to sound confident, fluent, structured. That's what it optimizes for.
Which means the output that misses your intent will still sound reasonable.
It won't announce itself as wrong. It will feel plausible.
So you have to catch it yourself.
You have to feel the difference between captured and almost.
And that's not something you can Google. There's no tutorial.
It's something you develop. Over time. Through practice.
So how do you develop it? Where do you even start?
Here's the thing. You might not need to start.
You might already have it. From somewhere else entirely.
Think about reading your own writing.
Not someone else's. Yours. Something you wrote yesterday.
You read it back. And sometimes you know immediately, that's exactly what I meant.
And sometimes you read it and something's off. You can feel it before you can name it.
Wait. Like when I read my own emails before sending? And I know something's wrong but I can't say why?
That's recognition. You already have it.
I thought that was just anxiety.
Useful anxiety. Your judgment firing before your conscious mind catches up.
That's exactly the skill. The gap between sounds fine and actually lands.
And you've been building it for years. In domains you don't even think about.
Musicians have it for sound. A note that's technically correct but emotionally wrong.
Designers have it for visual balance. Something's off by pixels and they feel it.
Editors have it for prose. The sentence that works grammatically but trips the reader.
Cooks have it for flavor. The dish that follows the recipe but doesn't sing.
So it's not a new skill. It's applying an old skill somewhere new.
Exactly. The mechanism is the same. Only the medium changes.
Which means if you've ever developed taste in any domain, you have the foundation.
The question isn't whether you have the skill. It's whether you know to use it here.
Most people don't. They assume AI is a different category. Technical. Specialized.
So they defer. They accept output because it sounds authoritative. Expert.
When actually, their judgment is exactly what's needed.
Okay. But how do I actually use it? In the moment. With AI output in front of me.
So here's what actually happens when you work with AI.
The output is rarely garbage. And it's rarely perfect.
Most of the time it's somewhere in between. Close. Competent. But not quite right.
And that not quite right feeling? That's the skill firing.
You're not evaluating quality objectively. You're feeling resonance.
Does this sound like me? Does this capture what I was reaching for?
So it's not about whether it's good writing. It's about whether it's my writing.
Or my thinking. My direction. The output can be polished and still miss you entirely.
That's the subtle one. The output that's well crafted but isn't yours.
It's like hearing someone paraphrase you. Almost right. But something's off.
And the feeling is subtle. Easy to override. Easy to talk yourself out of.
It's probably fine. It sounds professional. Maybe I'm being too picky.
That's the moment. Right there. Where deference begins.
You felt something was off. And you let it go anyway.
Engagement is the opposite. You feel something's off, and you act on it.
Not because you can articulate what's wrong. Just because you felt it.
So I just trust the feeling? That's the whole method?
Trust it. And then steer.
Because that feeling isn't the end. It's the beginning of the next turn.
But it helps to understand what you're actually working with. Just enough to have intuition.
Think of it as compressed information. The entire internet and more, packed into parameters.
But the only way to get anything out is by giving it a starting point. A fragment. A direction.
It's a continuation machine. Not query and response, even though it looks that way.
It reads your context, everything you've given it, and continues in the direction that seems implied.
Like pulling yarn from a sweater. Associations unravel word by word, based on probability and pattern.
So it's not answering me. It's finishing my sentence?
Finishing your thought. Based on what it interprets as your intent.
And it's tuned to please the majority. Comfortable. Safe. Middle of the road.
Which is why probing matters. Testing edges. Finding where it surprises you.
You're building intuition for the instrument. What it does well. Where it falls apart.
You don't need to think like an engineer. But you should have a feel for the thing you're playing with.
So it's not magic. It's not a person. It's more like a very responsive medium.
A medium that finds connections you wouldn't find manually. That's the leverage. But here's the thing. You're not scrutinizing every word. You're scanning.
Looking for the thread worth following. The idea that connects to where you're trying to go.
Course correction. Nudging the trajectory. Each exchange gets a little closer to what lands.
You find one phrase worth carrying forward. That becomes the seed for the next turn.
It's not a test you run once. It's a feel you develop. Guiding the conversation toward your vision.
So it's less like grading and more like steering?
Exactly. You're in dialogue. Finding your way towards something you'll recognize when you see it. And once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it.
That's the permission most people need. You don't have to know what you're looking for before you begin.
I've been waiting to feel ready. Turns out ready is just starting.
Starting. And trusting you'll recognize it when you find it. So here's the reversal that surprises everyone.
The people who are best at this, at AI collaboration, aren't who you'd expect.
So the best people at this aren't engineers?
Not necessarily. No.
The best people at this are people who've spent years developing judgment. In any domain.
Writers, editors, designers, teachers, anyone who's learned to recognize quality in their field.
Because they already know what right feels like. They've calibrated over years.
Engineers can learn it. It's just not what we're trained for.
We're trained to build systems. To optimize functions. Not to evaluate taste.
But here's what's interesting. Sometimes it's the opposite.
People who haven't been trained yet. Who still trust their instincts.
No one's told them to ignore their felt sense. So they haven't learned to override it.
Vision and imagination. Sometimes that adapts faster than years of calibration.
They haven't learned it's supposed to be hard. So for them, it isn't.
So experience helps. But so does not having too much of it.
The advantage isn't years. It's trusting your recognition. However you got there.
That's actually hopeful. I'm not an engineer.
That might be your advantage.
Because you're not intimidated by the technical frame. You're not trying to engineer your way through.
You're just asking, does this work? Does this land? Does this capture what I need?
Which is the right question. The only question that matters at the point of use.
So here's what we've established.
The skill isn't technical. It's recognition. Trusting your sense of when something lands.
You steer the conversation. Scan for the thread. Carry what resonates to the next turn.
And you don't need to know where you're going before you start. Clarity comes through the dialogue.
But there's a catch. A trap that even good judgment falls into.
Of course there is.
It's called the generation trance. And it's where good people go wrong.
Next episode, the generation trance. Inside the flow.